So, welcome to another episode of Dolphin
Podcast!
And this week we have a slightly controversial topic.
I suppose it is a bit controversial, isn't it?
Not to us, because we don't shy away from anything.
That's very true.
This week we're going to be talking about something many people can relate to, which is smoking.
Quite a bad habit. You know, man, I serve a lot of people cigarettes where I work.
Yeah.
And I think every time somebody buys a cigarette, they're not happy with themselves that they're doing so.
No.
I never have like a very joyful conversation. You know, sometimes people bring over baskets of milk and food and yeah, we can talk.
Yeah.
But if it's tobacco, they're like, buy that please, Cutter's Choice.
Okay.
You know, and you can see they're a bit annoyed. Is anyone happy that they are smoking?
Yeah. I think there are a few. I know a very, very select few that wouldn't give it up and thoroughly enjoy it and, you know, live fast, die young, leave a handsome corpse type of thing. But most people, I think, would like to quit. And when I smoked, because I used to smoke, I always wanted to quit. And that was a very difficult thing to do. So yeah. I was aware that it wasn't good for me.
Man, I mean, I started smoking maybe when I was like sort of 16, 17, 18.
Yeah.
But throughout my whole time I've smoked, which I don't now, but the whole time that I did smoke, I never admitted to myself that I smoked. And there was always a technique. Like an unknowing technique. I never wanted to accept or admit to myself that I did. Just never wanted to accept it. Do you mean I never wanted to let it in so it was normal? It was always like, nah, you know, it's just like a one-off. It's like not a one-off, but it's, here we go. It could be the last cigarette. I don't know. I don't know. It was never It was never me. It was always foreign.
Okay.
You know?
You didn't want to acknowledge you were addicted and accept that.
Yeah, I didn't want it to bring it in. I suppose that was like weak, or I looked at that as me being weak, or like defeat.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to be like, this doesn't make sense so much in English, but I want to smoke it. I don't want it to smoke me.
Right.
I always wanted to be like, no, I'm choosing to smoke it.
Yeah.
Because I want to smoke it.
I'm choosing to. Yeah.
I don't want it to be like an unconscious habit where I'm just like, doing it.
I'm completely in control, and I could stop tomorrow if I wanted to.
I've always kind of had that mindset, and I probably still have that mindset about a lot of things that I want to iron out in my life to have like a perfect kind of life.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a bad way of looking at it.
No, it shows it's a healthy response, because I suppose fundamentally you know that it's not good. So the fact that you're trying to at least convince yourself that you've got some control over it is a good thing. You know, it's not like you're just not worried about it at all.
Yeah.
Then it probably is more of a problem, isn't it?
I remember when I was like 19, just working like in a workshop, you know, using your hands and making like these double glazed windows I used to at the time, like a family business.
Yeah.
And I was smoking there, and there was another guy my age who was smoking as well, and both we like rolling together. And I assumed that he wanted to quit.
Right.
So, because I was rolling, I'd be like, so are you trying to stop smoking? He was like, no. And that was like my first realization, like at 19. It was the first time I had that conversation with somebody about quitting smoking. I was like, I thought I assumed everybody that smokes
just
wasn't planning on smoking for the future.
Yeah.
Because it's not a good thing to do. It's disgusting and it's a bad habit.
Yeah.
Really bad. You know, so I assumed everybody wanted it. And I think in the back of their minds, everybody does, man. But anyway, so you know some people that are quite happy smoking.
Yeah, I do.
How do you know that?
Well, just from having known them for such a large amount of time. I say a few. I mean, there's probably 1, 2, 3 people I can think of that, you know, would just have no interest in stopping. They're not exactly young, and they've had a pretty good amount of time on Earth, and they're just sort of, you know, taking every day as it comes, and each day's a gift. And I mean, one person I used to know actually got lung cancer. Now, I don't know if it was because they smoked. They were convinced it wasn't, but even after that, they said, you know, well, I'm dying, and so I might as well have a cigarette, sort of thing.
I can see that.
It made sense.
If I had like something terminal disease, I'd be like, F it. Whatever. I'm going to enjoy myself on the way out.
The initial diagnosis was a shock, and they did stop for a few weeks. But once it became obvious that they just weren't getting better, it was kind of like the ship's sinking, we'll have a glass of champagne type of thing.
Yeah, I understand that. That makes sense.
Yeah, that made perfect sense. And another friend of mine has quit, and he's 60. He's 62 now, and he quit when he was 60. And he said if he lives to 80, he's gonna start smoking again. might as well, right?
See, I've stopped smoking. I don't even want to use the word quit. I don't know what word to use. I don't know how I've figured it out in my head.
Yeah.
But smoking's not involved in my life. I'm not rolling or smoking or anything like that.
No.
But I've never said to myself, oh, that's it, I've stopped now forever. I know I'll definitely smoke another cigarette. It could be in 20 years. I don't know when it will be. But do you know what I mean? It's
Absolutely. It's like an old friend, and you know that you'll be reunited at some point again, if even only for a short time, because it's happened to me, because I quit and I started again. And even when I smoked, I always did the gym. You know, I lifted weights every day, and I'd stop and have a cigarette break, like in my bedroom. So I always liked to believe I'd counted it. You know, again, talking about what you were talking, for all intents and purposes, I was pretty healthy, but smoking was my downfall. And I got to 20 and I thought, right, this has to stop, and it did stop. And it was probably a year or so later. Things were difficult in life, and the first thing I did was just reach for the tobacco. And
so I mean, that's a long time though. That's, you know, a year. That's a hell of a long time, and a day is a long time for someone who's trying to stop smoking. Whether you have any techniques to that?
I did have some techniques, and I felt terrible when I started again. But it was only for about 6 months, and I've never smoked since. But I had some things I would do that would help me. And first and foremost, it was really wanting to do it, realising what it was doing to me physically and how terrible that was, and being scared of it. That was a big sort of kick up the backside. And anyone who says, oh, it's just, you know, having something to do with your hands, that is absolutely not true. It was an addiction for me. I know the feeling of nicotine withdrawal, and it's not nice. And so sometimes I would have a glass of grapefruit juice, and that would really... It didn't give you a good palate for a cigarette, because they just don't go together. So if you have a glass of grapefruit juice, it takes away a little bit of the craving. It did for me. But obviously not, you can't just quit on that basis, it's not enough, but it does help. And once you get to a day and 2 days and then a week, you've kind of got a milestone, and you think, well, if I go back now, look at what I've lost.
Yeah, so that's good. You want to keep building on it. So I got a friend that I only spoke to recently, and he stopped smoking, and he said he'd smoked until he was about 35, and he started when he was about 15.
Okay.
It's a hell of a long time. It's a hell of an early age to start. And he said he tried everything for years and years. He just figured out I would never give up smoking. So I tried everything. But eventually he just went on the patches, like these nicotine patches.
Yes.
And I said, well, did you have any habits? Because, you know, if you cut out one habit, you should replace it with another habit. He was like, no, there was just nothing. I just had no craving.
Okay.
You know, it worked for him. And that was like, he tried everything. So, I think it's just like to do with the mind, isn't it? It's just like never give up.
Yeah.
Keep tweaking whatever you're doing to try and quit smoking.
Yeah.
Just keep tweaking it a little bit. And then you'll eventually find something that will work for you. So with the grapefruit juice, that worked for you.
It was a big help. And so was just, you know, being conscious of my health.
Yeah.
And thinking about what that was doing. But it is something that I miss to this day. If I go into a house and someone smokes, it's disgusting, and I can smell it in my clothes, and I think, I'm so glad that's not me. But it was the first thing I did when I woke up, and the last thing I did before I went to sleep at night. And I had a lot of good times where I would be accompanied by a cigarette, you know.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for the health aspect, I mean, I always said I wish they could make a healthy cigarette because I'd smoke. I really, really got a lot of pleasure out of smoking, and I do miss that. But it's a trade-off because, you know, I'd rather be healthy.
Man, it's the trade-off. It's a thing that, like, I think for me, just had to get that in my head. It's like all this progress I'm making in the gym, or trying to be healthy, trying to live a healthy life.
Yeah.
Because we want to live, you know, you're happier when you're healthier.
Yeah.
You know, you have a more positive state of mind. It's easier to get up. You got more energy. Life's more fun.
Yeah.
If you're healthier. So, if I'm contradicting that if I'm smoking. You know, I'm just like, I'm putting a stump, or I'm taking 2 steps forward, a step back.
Yeah.
Even like 2 steps back. Even I'm just staying. You know, you're not really making any progression, I think, if you're just smoking, because it's such a bad thing.
Yeah, it shows disregard for life as well, because I as I say, I quit when I was 20, and I was aware if I quit now, there's very little damage that's been done between the age of 16 to 20, as opposed to, say, quitting at 40. The body would have a lot more repair work to do, you know. That was my logic. So I thought, quit now before there's any long-term damage. But even when I was a young man and I would be smoking, and I would see something like somebody who was very young and they had a terminal illness, and I'd think, here I am, healthy, and I'm just sitting here smoking this. And to contrast that with that terrible event, I just thought, wow, like, I'm really ungrateful of the gift of life. But, you know, I don't know.
That's such a great point, man. But I know some people that, you know, in their 50s, 60s, and they've smoked their entire lives.
Yeah.
And they got nothing wrong with them. And
No.
I know, God, I got a family member, an uncle, who will run the London Marathon every year. And he smokes maybe 30 a day.
Yes.
And has done for 30, 40 years. And, you know, he's healthy. He's a healthy runner.
Yeah. And you could have bulletproof genetics, and that's everything in life is a gamble, is a wager. You don't know. You could get diagnosed with lung cancer at 40 and you've never smoked, or you could smoke to your 90 and, you know, drop dead of lack of breath in your sleep. The thing is, because you don't know, it makes sense to play it safe and assume that if you stop, you'll have a healthier life and less chance of getting something like lung cancer. But of course you might not. But
I do think it's state of mind a lot. If I've got it on my mind that, okay, this thing is bad for me and I keep doing it, then it's gonna manifest. I've got more of a chance, I think, of manifesting something in my stomach.
Yeah.
In my body, I mean.
Or in your stomach, I mean, you know.
Yeah, wherever.
I don't know if you remember those they were like little filters, and you'd put them on the end of a cigarette. Not filter tips. They were like made of plastic.
No.
And they used to collect the tar from the cigarette. Well, that was quite eye-opening to me. I remember somebody gave me one. They said, put this on your end of the cigarette where you draw from, where the filter is.
Yeah.
That's another thing I used to do, is light the wrong end sometimes. That was horrible. So if you ever did that, but
only when really drunk, yeah.
And you put this little filter thing on, and you're smoking, and you can see like black tar forming in it, and you're thinking that's quite horrific because that's just from one cigarette, and the cigarette wasn't as nice, but you add that up and you think, flipping heck. So the body is constantly working to try and reverse that and undo that damage.
So insane, because you can't see it, you have no idea, and that's the thing. It's like out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
But if you had that in your mind or you could see it, you would never do it. Just like on that note, I just heard a story from a friend once who doesn't smoke. He said he went to a festival and decided to buy, a music festival there for 3 days, whatever, just drinking, going crazy.
Yeah.
Just decided to buy all these cigarettes just for the festival.
Right.
He wasn't going to continue smoking. So he said he smoked like a pack of 20 at least in a day. And the next day he was coughing up all this tar.
Wow.
Because his body wasn't used to it, and then it just got hammered. So it was the body instantly just flushing all the dirt away.
Wow.
Get rid of it straight away. But if you're doing it gradually every day, the body's used to it and it can't flush it out.
It really must be upping its gear in repair mode when you smoke, because you have one. I think the body can undo the damage pretty quickly, but when it's one after another, it just can't keep up with the damage that you're inflicting on the body, and that's always a good sign. When the first time you ever have a drag on a cigarette, I remember my first time, and it was the reaction is horrible, and of course that's exactly how you should react to poison. But when you no longer have that reaction, that can't be good, can it?
Same reaction with alcohol. I mean, you're probably going to be sick the first time you drink.
Or get really drunk on a couple of pints.
Yeah,
that's
and then
good.
Sick, man.
That's good. You don't want to adapt. I mean, adaptation is generally a good thing in evolution, isn't it?
But not to poison.
Not to poison, no. I mean, maybe I often used to wonder, if you smoked and your kid smoked and your kid smoked, would you have a child like 10 generations along who would be kind of like resistant to the damage from it or something? I used to think
body
about
evolving
that.
In the moment.
But it's common sense. I mean, my grandma, she used to say she honestly didn't believe smoking harmed her, and they used to put the adverts on the television of, I think it was a woman smoking, and her skin was going all like, it looked like she was turning into a corpse. And my grandma used to say, for goodness sake, that's just so ridiculous. I've been smoking all this time and I'm okay. But it's common sense. If you just, take a drag off your cigarette and don't inhale it and blow it at an insect, it runs in the opposite direction. And that should tell you that, this is anti-life, What about, do you think there is some sort of like natural thing to it? See, like maybe Buddhists and monks and people like in, ancient times, where they would have this tobacco
or however it's formed and made.
Yeah.
And there would be
Peace
some sort
pipes.
of meditative, smoking naturally, with a pipe. Even in showing like Lord of the Rings, for like Gandalf was supposed to be like this wise person.
Yeah.
Kind of smoking and taking a time, real chilling out and using it as a source of meditation.
There is something enchanting and mystical about it, as there is with fire. So yeah, there could be some evolutionary origin to it. That would make sense. But I think
just the chemicals, man. Modern day cigarettes and stuff. It's just more about keeping people addicted, I suppose, or making the taste a bit better.
Well, I always used to smoke tobacco, and in the very early days, I smoked straights, and I went on to tobacco, and then I tried a straight again, and it was disgusting. I could just taste all those horrible chemicals in it. But then somebody said, "Oh, hand rolling tobacco is just as bad," but I don't know. I could tell the difference.
But still, even in the tobacco, it's not going to be like natural.
No,
I think there is a brand that we sell in the UK, which is like toxin-free tobacco.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's quite a popular brand. It's not mainstream, that mainstream, but it's in the top 10, I would say, of tobacco sold in the UK.
And there were definitely social benefits to it. Even though I was an introvert, if I did go out, people were more inclined to talk to you if you smoked, or to ask you for a lighter or something, and it got people together, which is sad, but it was true.
Oh man, definitely. I mean, I could just go out on my own easy. You could just go anywhere. You go to a smoking area, any point of the night, and there's always gonna be somebody, even if they're on their own.
Yeah.
All right, man, you got a lighter.
That's it.
Conversation.
We got one thing in common, right? We both smoke. So there were social benefits to it, but that was just something I noticed. And when I was really young, like 16. And I didn't do it because I thought it was cool, but I do remember thinking it looks cooler to smoke than not to smoke. But I was completely uncool, and I knew it would make no difference to me. But I definitely thought, Clint Eastwood definitely looked better with a cigar than without one.
It has definitely got this cool factor, especially like with TV and everything.
Yeah,
cigar and sunglasses and leather jacket or something, and a cigarette. But
these days it's very, very unfashionable amongst young people. I think it would probably have the opposite reaction. But
take a look. Well, it's a bit of a stupid thing to do, a foolish thing to do.
Yeah,
I think, and I just think people are more conscious of that.
I used to ask my dad, "Why do you smoke?" when I was a young boy. And he always used to say, "Because I'm stupid." That was it. And I could never understand what he meant, but that's what he used to say to me.
I mean, I thought that to myself when I did smoke.
Yeah.
So it's such a stupid thing to do.
Yeah.
But it's that craving, man. It's that craving in the moment. That's what you get hooked on. And you can have motivation, like when you wake up, when you've just had a cigarette, you're like, right, that's it. Never again.
Yeah.
And you can put everything away. You can put it down the toilet.
Because you've just had one.
Or you just woke up with motivation.
Oh.
So when you're motivated, fine, it's the easiest thing in the world.
Yeah.
Never again. But it's setting your life up, your day-to-day experience, moment-to-moment experience without it. And conquering it when it forms, when the craving, when the thought. So have you got a vice? A lot of people have got vices, and they'll use cigarettes as a vice, or smoking. Or drinking alcohol, or chocolate.
Right.
People have. You know what I mean by like a vice.
Yes.
Something that people need to do, but it just gives you a bit of a break from whatever the hell you're trying to do in life. You got, like, any vices? Did you have a replacement of smoking as a vice?
Well, not so much. I mean, this probably sounds pathetic, but I'd say coffee, if anything. But
no, that's a popular one, man.
That's the only thing I replaced it with. I was never a big drinker, so no, not really. I mean, there's things I enjoy in life, but I wouldn't call them like a vice.
Yeah, vices are normally considered, I think, bad.
Yeah,
it's a bad, unhealthy break, a lifestyle choice.
Yeah,
it's part of your lifestyle. This unhealthy vice.
But there are definite patterns that form. So it's certain times of the day. Wake up. That's when you want one. That's when it's difficult not to. When you're at work, it's okay. Or when you come home and you sit down, you think, that's when I'd have one. That's when it's really difficult. So replacing it with something else in those moments is probably key. It was always after I'd eaten, or I was going to watch a film, and it'd be like, now I need that cigarette. If I can't have one, I mean, it gave me a glimpse into addiction because, okay, it's smoking, but I remember time and time again I would get my tobacco and I would fill it with water and throw it in the bin, and then several hours later I'd be trying to dry it out with a hand dryer again. And I thought, what a pathetic, wretched creature I am.
Don't let me tell you the stuff that I've done, man.
But it lost it.
I've got similar experiences. I'm not even going to tell you that'll do what you
said. I could go way worse than that, but
I'm sure we've all been there. People that are trying to stop smoking.
But it had always lost its potency after it had been in water. It's like it had just sort of diluted all the goodness out of it, and it was awful. And I thought,
but you think to yourself, oh god, how pathetic.
And I'd say I'm not addicted, or then I'd find myself visiting friends that smoked far more frequently than I otherwise would have, and I thought, yeah, it's, this is really, really hard to give up. So I'm very sympathetic towards people who are addicted to way harsher substances than that, just from that little glimpse that I had into it. And of course, I've had people close to me who have had addiction problems, and I've seen it destroy lives, and so I've always been sympathetic with addiction, but smoking is really, really hard to give up. Don't start.
It's that moment by moment, man. Again, for me, it was when I was tired. Like, what's his name? We've talked about him before. He talks about addiction and how to get over stuff. He's got a famous name, but he's got the same name as a comedian in the UK.
Oh, not that Alan Carr guy.
Yes, Alan Carr.
Yeah.
So when I first thought, I was like, Alan Carr, with Chatty Man or whatever his damn show's called. So he's like in the 80s, I think, 70s, 80s, writing these like self-help books, how to quit drinking and smoking, which he's done, and his practices involve not using willpower. He's like, don't use knowledge as power. So just read about it, understand what it's doing to your body, and then you won't want to smoke, or you won't want to drink, you won't want to put this poison into your body when you realise fully like what it's doing to you every time you take a drag or have a drink. Don't think about it on 5 years it'll be. No, every time you take a sip, it's poisoning you right there from that very moment. And so if you can work that out, that's his therapy. That's his plan. So not using willpower, and I thought that's a good point. Not using willpower. So for me, when I used to have a cigarette, it was at the end of the day when I'd pretty much been active all day, not having a break all day. And then say like 10, 11 o'clock at night when I'd finished everything, okay, it's quiet now. I've actually finished. I'm non-active now from now onwards. Next thing is bed in maybe a couple of hours. That's when I used to smoke, because my willpower was just like zero. Because I've been good all day, active as hell all day. So it used to get me at the end of the day, man.
I see.
So his point made sense to me. It was like not using willpower, and I was like, it's more about knowledge, because your willpower is going to fluctuate throughout the day. When you're tired, it's hard to use your willpower. They say willpower is like a muscle in the brain. If you're, say, for doing bicep curls every day, or an hour straight, your biceps are going to be weak. If you're using your willpower, throughout the whole day, trying to stop smoking, trying to stop, don't do it. Your willpower muscle is going to be weak. So by the end of the day, it's going to be like, oh fuck it, you're going to roll.
It's for emergencies only.
Just keep it stored there. So his technique is more about
a good
knowledge.
Because I still, fear is a very useful tactic, and I still think today what that did to me. I still have thoughts.
Fear.
Yeah, and I think, gosh, because I always looked quite young for my age when I was growing up, and now I'm getting older, and I think, I probably look my age now, but
I'm starting to look my age. So you think you smoking has made you?
I think maybe I'd look 28 instead of 33 if I hadn't, like if I'd have just allowed myself to age naturally. I wonder the damage it did to me, but I have a lot of faith that the body is very, very good at recovering, and it does an amazing job. So
I think it's like every 6 years you're fully replenished. Isn't it?
6 or 7 years, I heard.
You're fully. So say I stopped doing anything bad and I just ate good and drank water for 6 years. I'd be like the healthiest I could possibly be in 6 years' time.
Yes, I think that as well. I try to think that.
So all your cells, everything's got that time.
It's all replaced.
It's all regenerated.
Yeah. No, that's somewhat reassuring. Thank you, because I had heard that, but
I don't know, man. Because I supposedly people think I look younger than what I do, because I'm 33.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, I kind of feel 33 sometimes. Sometimes I feel like 20.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I wonder if it will catch up on me, because I was smoking for longer than you, probably 10 years longer than you.
Yeah.
Say my mother, for instance, she's never smoked and doesn't drink alcohol, very rarely. Like twice in my life I think I've seen her drink alcohol.
Yeah.
You know? And, you know, she looks like 20 years younger than what she is.
Yes.
You know, the body really does reflect what you're putting into it.
Yeah.
I think it comes with wisdom, man. I think it comes with age and wisdom.
Yeah.
The choice to be like, I can't do this anymore. You know, if you've been smoking like all your 20s and your teens and 20s, you're gonna hit a point where you're like, I can't do this anymore, man.
Yeah.
Because of health again.
Yeah, because of health. And society is becoming very health conscious. I think years ago, you just watched the old TV shows, everybody was smoking in the 70s and the 80s. Do you remember the old, well, you won't remember it, but the advert for Camel cigarettes? You can look it up on YouTube, and it's saying, you know, the doctor recommends Camel, and there's this doctor at his desk smoking a cigarette.
It's weird how it was promoted. It was actually promoted, and it was allowed. Yeah, the doctor would be in real life smoking, and
it was like something like 7 out of 10 doctors recommend Camel, and so
mad, isn't it? How common it was.
Kind of just shakes your faith in people, I suppose, and authority.
Authority, man, in government and media don't give a damn.
No,
it's all about selling.
No. And I suppose it would have been easier in the old days if your mum and dad smoked, just to go along with it, because I grew up in a house where people were smoking. That's something I'm conscious of now, breathing it in as a child. And so I just wonder, was I more predisposed to it because of that reason? I don't know. You absorb things as a child, don't you, that your parents do? And
well, I always saw my dad smoking. And he smoked rollies.
Yeah.
So even before, you know, God, man, I think like when I was at the age to start smoking, like sort of 16, 17, I knew I was going to smoke. I always knew it.
Yeah.
It was like part of the plan. If I could see into the future and, you know, I was comfortable with it.
Yeah.
With the future, I was like, yeah, smoking's part of it. Like, I just knew.
It's just a matter of when.
Yeah. It was just such a natural process to smoking, as the same as it was a natural to give up.
Yeah.
Where it came, okay, it's time to not do this anymore. It was like, yeah, it's time to start doing this.
It's almost like the passing of the torch, or the passing of the cigarette. Oh, you've come of age, son.
That's it, definitely.
Because I was 16. I was 16 when I bought my first pack of cigarettes. And I was like, that was horrible. I just gave them to my dad. And then a day or two later I thought, actually, you know what? I wouldn't mind another one of those. And I knew, it was almost like, I knew intellectually that process was unfolding, because everyone always would say, once you start, you can't stop.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought, I just won't be able to stop now. And I was kind of like just playing the part almost.
Yeah, you're going with it. You're kind of testing it.
Yeah. And then I couldn't stop. And but thank God I did. And when I was very young, I said to my mum, what's it like smoking? And I said, could I try your cigarette? And, you know, she actually let me. I was probably like 6. And she just gave me this cigarette, and I just coughed my guts up. And I think her intention was to really put me off for life. And that probably should have. Because I could not fathom why she did that after that moment. I thought, why in the world would you smoke? That was horrific.
I can see why people, like, again, if it's like one a day, or one day of the week, where they're going to like drink and smoke or something like that, I can see myself maybe when I'm like 60 having like, you know, a moment to yourself where you enjoy like a glass of whiskey and a cigar or a cigarette or something. I can see that.
Yeah.
But not now, where I feel like I'm in my prime.
In the prime, yeah.
I feel like I'm in my prime, man.
Yeah. I used to think it'd be nice if I could just have 2 or 3 a day. One in the morning, one at lunch, one in the evening. And I could actually do that. I don't have to sort of smoke 20 a day. I can limit it.
I don't think that works.
No,
it doesn't.
A lot of people
I've
say
tried
that
so many times where I'm like, okay, just have one a day.
Yeah.
And I'll have one. And then the next day it's like, oh, I've got 5 minutes free. Or an hour free, you know, just before work or something. I may as well roll a cigarette. Got nothing else to do. And then that turns into 3 a day. And then I'll have 2 in a row.
It's terrible, isn't it? When I was quitting, I'd roll a cigarette because I was good at rolling them. But what I would actually do is, before I rolled it, I would tear about a quarter off of the Rizzler, and I'd roll smaller cigarettes. So you would still get the satisfaction from the nicotine hit, and pretty much as soon as you were satisfied, the cigarette had run out. Whereas when they were normal length, that the last few puffs of a cigarette is always like, why do I do this? Because you've kind of had the hit.
Yeah.
And I thought I could probably I could snip a bit off the end there and get the hit and not have to have any excess poison than I need. And that actually worked quite well for me.
Yeah, I just started killing them even halfway in.
Right.
I look at it and be like, it's disgusting, gone.
Yeah.
After like 3 puffs.
Right.
That was nearing the end of like when it was coming time to quit.
Yeah.
So even like 1 or 2 puffs in, it was like, no, this is horrible.
Yeah. I remember buying those herbal cigarettes from the health food shop. They were supposed to help you quit, and they had no nicotine in them at all. I mean, they were pathetic, really. It was just like smoking tea leaves, but it was supposed to mimic.
Oh, you smoked it?
You smoked them. Yeah,
right.
like in a packet. And the funny thing is, it smelled just like somebody was smoking a joint when you lit one up. But it wasn't. It was just herbal stuff. And I was in a pub once, and Brady's bar, and the owner just looked over at me and says, "You can't do that in here, mate." And I said, "No." I showed him. I said, "They're herbal ones, And he went, "Oh, right." And my dad said, funny enough, he'd bought some years ago when we lived in Canada, and smoked one in a taxi and got kicked out of the taxi. But it does. It smells just like marijuana.
It smells like weed.
But they weren't very good. It was like, you had a drag and you got nothing.
Yeah.
It was like decaf coffee or socks in the bath, as they used to say. It was like, this is absolutely pointless. I'd rather just not smoke.
Yeah, but you're looking for that hit, aren't you? You're looking for that replacement. I mean, I've been through it as well. I'm glad that you've been through it too.
Yeah.
The whole finding replacements for it.
Yeah.
I started using some like that gum.
I tried that.
Nicorette gum.
Yeah.
After my friend that I told you about, like I said, it worked for him after about 30 years of smoking, 20 a day. This gum, or these patches worked for him.
Did you ever get, with that gum especially, and I think it's caused by having a large dose of nicotine too much at once. It would feel as though there was a lump or something in your throat.
Yeah.
And it was always from too much nicotine, and that gum used to do that to me. I'd think like, there's something in my throat, and there wasn't.
That's something, man. That's like
you've had
verging on symptoms of panic attack. I swear to God.
Yeah.
Because when I was younger, if we ever do an episode about like anxiety, that was like a common symptom for me.
Yes.
And if I started thinking about it or even Googling what the hell, it feels like there's a lump in my throat, it used to increase. And then I'd be like, I can't even swallow because there's a lump in my throat.
Oh, I
think it's something to do with, again, too much nicotine being in your body. So your body's just kind of like overreacting.
Okay.
And it's an illusion having this lump, because I had a camera down there and everything, and there was like, no, there's nothing in your throat.
Yeah.
Because I really thought it was a lump in my throat, man. I thought it was.
Gee whiz. I mean, it just had a very. This is completely illogical, but it's like when you have a symptom and you don't know what it is, and you're kind of hypothesizing. And it had a very nicotine-y sort of feel to it, and it was like the brain was saying, it's probably from nicotine. It's like when you feel sick and you can only think of the last food that you ate, and you think it was probably fine, but that was the last thing I ate, and so maybe the brain's saying like, stay away from that because it could be what poisoned you. Logically, it was the last thing you ate. Probably good to stay away from it, even though there was some process going on. But and somebody else said it too once. They said, I get this horrible feeling in my throat when I have that gum, and I said, yeah, I get that too. So,
well, they release different kinds now, so if you smoke like less than 10 or 20 a day, it's very low milligram of nicotine per gum piece, and if you smoke over 20, they'll be like 4 milligrams, or under 20 is like 2 milligrams. So I think they've tried to work on that in the last like 5-10 years.
Well, this was like chewing a cigarette. It was horrible.
Yeah, well, something worked for you though. What do you say? What was it in the end? Just finding a replacement, or just?
No, it was really just. So I said, I'm gonna quit, and I said, at my worst, I would smoke between 20 and 30 a day when I was very stressed. But on average, when I was pretty healthy, I'd have like 10, 15, 20.
Still quite a lot, man.
Yeah, too much. So I'd say, right, tomorrow I'm going to have 12, and then a couple of days after that I'm going to have 10.
And you managed to stick to that?
And I went down and down and down, so next week I'll have 7, and eventually I brought it right down till I got to my last cigarette. And I thought that was better than just going cold turkey, because I was reducing the amount of nicotine in my system bit by bit by bit, rather than just shutting it right off.
But that worked for you. You were able to do like 10 one day, 9 the next day. It worked, you were able. So that's using like your willpower, isn't it? It's strategy and planning and sticking to it, disciplining yourself.
Yeah.
That's quite impressive. It's hard to do.
And I did try. I wasn't smoking at the time, but I did have a go on one of those vaping pens a few years back just to try it. And I thought, God, that could be a bastard of a little habit that you could pick up quite easily because it was just always there.
Well, again, I bought one of those, but I used this nicotine-free juice, and again, like it just had no hit, like that herbal tobacco that you had. So like, the whole point of me smoking is to get this hit or something. Yeah. And then so I suppose vape could work, but man, I enjoyed the process of rolling. Yeah. I enjoyed putting the tobacco into the paper, rolling it all up, sparking it up with a lighter, and having to stand outside or by a window. You know, getting that fresh air, you know, that's the whole point, the whole satisfaction from it. Yeah. Just being outside in cold air at night.
Oh, in the
breathing
cold.
Breathing in this cold air, breathing out, just proper relaxing. Yeah. I don't want to tempt myself too much now here.
Well, I remember years ago when I was too young to smoke, my little brother had been sick in the back of the car. And we dropped him off somewhere and I was saying, oh, it's gross. You know, my dad said, oh, I'll tell you what, I'll light a fag. I was like, yeah, do that. And it did sort of help a bit, you know, but that first lighting of the cigarette, especially in the cold, that lovely, there's nothing like that.
Yeah, so vaping, that didn't replace the whole thing because Rizla's slogan is the art of rolling, and I think that's an awesome slogan because it is about that. It wasn't so much, even when I had the 2 or 3 puffs and put it out, but like, that's disgusting. Yeah. The whole excitement was rolling it. Yeah, rolling it and preparing it. It's part of the art form. Well, smoking it's just the end bit, which you didn't have to smoke a whole cigarette.
I remember in college we had to do some sort of like it was something to do with the course we were on about having a business and come up with an idea for a business, and I just came up with a cigarette rolling business, which was stupid really, but I thought I could probably get into this because I've been to a tobacconist and they had all these different tobaccos in tubs, and I thought this is like an art, you could really get into this. So I just imagined somebody would be like, oh, can I have like 100 cigarettes for Friday? It's like yeah, no worries. And I'll roll
and you would roll them.
I'd roll them like different types, and you have to keep them fresh. And I had a friend I used to work with, and I'd go to his house, and he had a jukebox in his living room and all these posters and CDs. He was really into his music. And he would sit there, and I'd sit there with him, and he'd just roll cigarettes. He's like, oh, this is for tomorrow,
I've seen that. People would have a tin of like 30 pre-rolled cigarettes that they would just roll in batches.
Yeah, and I thought that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've enjoyed rolling it in the moment, man. It's the whole part of it.
But I could never take to those stupid little machines. Yeah, I couldn't even really use them.
They're harder than using your finger and thumb.
I know. And I'd roll a cigarette, somebody would go, that's brilliant. I see, I'm not good at much, but that must be one of the things I'm good at.
I like rolling, man. But it's from like 10 years of doing it. Like I can roll masterfully. Like before we finish, Jim, I'll just say I used meditation actually to stop smoking. It was all about a sort of positive reinforcement. It was saying to myself, I have everything I need in life. Yeah. I'm calm, I'm controlled, I'm secure. I don't need this. And you know what? It was putting my mind on what I do want to do rather than what I don't want to do. If I'm saying to myself, I'm pacing around in the gym, say, or at home, and it's like, I don't want to smoke, I'm giving it energy. Because I'm thinking about what I don't want to do. Either way, I'm giving it energy, right? Because I'm thinking about it. I started thinking about what I do want to do instead. I want to do this in my life, I want to do that in life. And I'd be focusing on that, and with this positive reinforcement, it was kind of like, you haven't got room for smoking. Okay. And then a few days go by, and once you've mentioned that, we start these milestones. Yeah. So it's just like, cool, just positive reinforcement, just staying calm, and even meditating in the moment when this craving like erupted. You may be using a gum then, like a Nicorette gum or whatever they call them, a patch. Just to get that nicotine boost or whatever, or just like.
I call that the Freddy Krueger effect.
Go on.
Just don't feed it, stop thinking about it, and kill it, and it'll die. That's a great method that you just described.
That's what I've used, man, and that's after like 10 years of not even accepting it.
Yeah.
but it always being there. So it's kind of like a demon, right? And I was looking at it like this as well.
Yes.
You got these demons where, people use alcohol or drugs or something like a demon.
Yeah.
But I've been trying to like befriend the demons. So it's not a separate thing from me. It's like, no, you're part of me. Come on, it's all right.
That's very...
and it it comes off your shoulder and it's just part of you.
That's very Jungian in your thinking.
Yeah, Carl Jung.
Yeah, incorporating the shadow and everything.
Incorporating the demon. So it's like, good, you're one with me. So I'm in control now.
Yeah.
There's not like a separate thing, a separate entity going, have a cigarette. Go on.
Yeah. That's
it's part
really
of you,
interesting.
and you sort of befriending it. And
Okay.
just like, again, it's a mind game. Life's a mind game, man. It's
Yeah.
all about your mind, our entire lives.
Yeah.
So, and your perspective, So, yeah, it was just working on that for weeks and maybe months together.
I'm really glad that you did.
Yeah, man. I'm glad I did too.
And just for the record, did you ever, this was probably terrible that we used to do this, but my step-granddad used to do it. He would crush up menthol crystals and sprinkle it in the tobacco and smoke it.
Menthol crystals?
Because he used to like menthol cigarettes, You could buy them. And he's like, I can make my own, mate. I was like, all right. Then he was like Uncle Albert from Only Fools and Horses. And I used to do it. He'd crush up the menthol crystals and sprinkle it in the tobacco and you'd smoke it and it was really potent. And it was only years later, I was looking at the back of the tub and there's like a skull and crossbones on it. And I thought, well, that can't have been good for my lungs all those years.
There should be a skull and crossbones on every cigarette and beer bottle.
I know. This was from the pharmacy though. You could buy them, and if you had a cold, you'd get boiling hot water. You put a menthol crystal in it and cover your head and inhale the steam.
I see.
Steam was okay, but to actually smoke it in a cigarette, I thought, I don't know. I'll have to look into that. Perhaps not.
I've definitely broken up some sort of substance and crumbled it into a rollie before, but it wasn't menthol flakes. And I'd never heard of that before.
I smoked Thai food tea once because Paul McCartney said he'd done it when he was a kid, and I thought, I've got to try that.
You got to try it.
Terrible. And I smoked chocolate because of that episode of The Simpsons. When they're in school and Mrs. what's her name, Crabapple or something.
Yeah, Crabapple.
Yeah, and she's showing.
But Homer called her Crabapple.
Oh, there you go. I'm a bit like Homer. And she was showing him a documentary on chocolate, and in the beginning it went, years ago people used to smoke chocolate. And I remember thinking,
hosted by Troy McClure.
Yeah, I thought that'd be quite nice, and I tried, and it was just like, horrible. But
yeah, it's true, man. When you smoke, there aren't barriers of on life.
No.
For things that people will try because you're smoking. So it's almost like you're at the bottom of the barrel anyway. Especially when you're trying to give up. Say you're going through the trash or whatever, trying to get the cigarette, the tobacco back out that you threw away in a burst of inspiration the night before.
There's no level of depravity to which I would not plunge. I did that once. I used some dog ends, and I don't know what the hell was in it, but it gave me. It kind of like I felt like I was going to faint, And I never did it again after that. But
yeah, man,
dangerous.
Yeah. So whatever high you get as well, like from smoking or drugs or alcohol, the best high in the world is honestly working out. It's being healthy, it's meditating, it's eating right.
Yeah.
There's no better high or better feeling in the world, and that's only something I've realised in the last year or two.
Yeah.
Especially more and more, actually, man. Every day I'm realising it more and more.
Yeah.
It's just so powerful.
Yeah.
And that's the greatest high, because I've been high in the past,
Yeah.
I've travelled around, the world, you just get into situations like that sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's no better high in the world than being like super healthy.
I think going with the life force is always going to be better than going against it.
Absolutely, man.
You're made to live, and that you've got that like pilot light in you, and it's like go with the grain. That's kind of how you're designed and structured and put together. And if you work with nature on its terms, things generally work out for the best.
I think so, man. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's maybe your own ego can get in the way when you want to roll that cigarette or something, isn't it? It's just like a part of you that's not trusting the flow of life.
Yes. I tell you, when I used to live with my step-granddad, this will be my last story, and we both slept downstairs in the house, and so I used to creep into his bedroom when he wasn't there and take his cigarettes. And I don't know if you've ever done this, if it's a brand new pack, you can't do it. But once they've had like 5 or 6 out the pack, you can't really tell if you take one.
Yeah.
It's kind of like mid. But he started to suss it out because I could hear him go to bed and he'd be cursing me, right? So I thought, he's like becoming aware of it. So sometimes what I would do, just to mess his mind up, is I'd go out and buy a packet of cigarettes and then put like 5 in there, and then he'd really be scratching his head thinking, hang on, maybe I'm just losing the plot, because people would steal cigarettes, but they certainly wouldn't put them back in there and top them up when I'm smoking them. And I thought, now he'll never know. But in the end, I did stop doing it. And it was only because he used to steal my grandma's, so I felt justified by it. But anyway, he lived to a good old age and he smoked all his life.
Yeah, man. But yeah, when you're craving that cigarette, the lengths you'll go to.
It's terrible.
I've thought of like knocking on neighbours before and just being like, I don't want to buy any because I've got them then. I just want to smoke right now.
I just want one.
Yeah, I just want one. It's always, I just want one in the moment now.
Yeah.
I don't want 3. But yeah, it's just letting it pass, isn't it? Just like drinking or meditating or whatever in the moment, man.
My uncle always used to say, it's just a thought. It'll go away. It's just a thought. Which technically is true, but it's very powerful. It's very hard to control. And it's releasing dopamine, presumably, and that's like the feel-good chemical. So in a way, your brain is maybe associating it with something health-related, because it's generally things that aid to life that give you dopamine and serotonin, like food and sex. So if you've actually tricked your brain into doing that when you have a cigarette, that's really perverted, but I think that's the process that's going on. I
think it is too, so you need to kind of rewire that, isn't it? And you can do that through deep thought and just staying mindful. Again, that episode of meditation that we had.
And here we both are, though, at 33, and we've done it.
We've done it, man, so it's...
we're here to tell the story.
Yes.
And help others, if they want.
On that note, I hope that was a podcast filled with good stories and helpfulness.
Yeah, interesting and useful, hopefully, to somebody. You can do it. Don't ever think, I'll never do this. It is possible because people have done it.
Yeah, just stay mindful, isn't it? Just constantly stay aware of it. And again, tweak. Just constantly work on it. Never give up.
Yeah.
It's what I kept saying to myself. Like, come on, you've got this. You can do this.
Go and exercise and feel all that blood pumping around and carrying all that oxygen and think, man, that feels great. You get colour in your skin and you're not starving your muscles of oxygen. That's a great feeling. So do that.
Life's just so much more enjoyable
with health.
When you're not doing that. When you're cutting out when you're befriending your demons, because then you don't have any demons. You are the demon. No, you befriend, you tame the demon.
Yes. Yeah.
So everything's cool, and it's a lot easier, man, to live.
There's a really good clip on YouTube, and I think it's called "Developing Your Inner Psychopath" by Jordan Peterson. He basically touches on that, saying like it's more to do with psychology, but it's realizing there's a monster in you and incorporating that into your being, and then essentially harnessing that for good. Because if it was, something like, if you're just a person who is incapable of doing harm, then you're not really a good person. But if you are a person who's very much aware that you've got a monster in you and you tame it and harness it for good, that's truly noble. As opposed to just being a fluffy white rabbit that can't do any harm. It's realising, yes, there is a demon there, and I will use it for good.
Yeah, I think you just
I will master it.
Completely accept it. Like, don't shy away from it, because in the back of your mind it's there.
Yeah.
You've got these things, and you just don't want to even think about it or look at it. It's like you don't even want to check your bank balance sometimes. That's a common one, isn't it? But then sometimes it's like, okay, I've got to do this.
And it's always
got to look how much money I got, and then I can budget.
And it's always worse at NatWest than at Barclays for some reason. So don't ever check it on that machine.